Hello everyone. As you guys know, we've been learning about circles. We've been talking about things such as circumference and area. And there's just been a little bit of discussion about certain topics with circles. I talked with one of your classmates, Danny, and he was a little bit confused about pi and just wasn't sure what it is. And I think some of you guys are as well. So today we're going to be doing a little mini lesson about discovering pi. You guys can do this at home with me. I'll give you guys all of the instructions on what to do, and we're going to do it together. So let's get started. Okay, so for today's lesson, we're going to be using a ruler, some string. You're going to need your guys' calculators, scissors, and then we have a recording sheet where we're going to be putting the circumference, diameter, and we're going to get into the rest of the chart once we figure out those. And then we are using just any objects from our house that is a circular shape. And notice I have different sizes here. And we're just gonna go right ahead and start. Okay, to get started, we're gonna first do this jar item. So I went ahead and wrote the object on my sheet, and we're going to find the circumference first. So again, what is circumference? Circumference is the distance around the circle. So however much it takes to go around the circle, that is our circumference. The diameter of a circle is the distance across. So we're not going around. When we measure the diameter, we're just focusing on one point to the end point over here. And then again, a radius of a circle is half of your diameter. So in other words, half of the distance across. And then the big question, pi. How does pi fit into any of this? So there's a little something special about circles. They all kind of follow a similar pattern. When you take your circumference and divide it by the diameter of a circle, every time you do that with any size circle, you could have a circle this size or a tiny circle or a much bigger circle. When you divide the circumference by the diameter, you always get a similar number every time, no matter how large or how small the circle is. And they named that number pi. In other words, you would get a number that is close to 3.14. That is the approximation of pi. So let's get into our first object and see what numbers we get for this. Okay, so again, we know that the circumference is the distance around. So we're gonna take our string. I actually already pre-cut this one, but you're gonna take your string, wrap it around, and cut it where the ends meet. And then after you cut your string, you're gonna measure that length on your ruler. And we're using centimeters. You're going to place your string on your ruler, and obviously you're gonna pull your string, and we're gonna see how long it is. Okay, so my string was 23 centimeters. So on your recording sheet, you're going to write under circumference 23 centimeters. Now for the diameter, you're just gonna take your ruler and you're gonna put it on your circle, and you're gonna see how long the circle is. The length, which is, this is about 7 centimeters, or actually it's exact. We're getting exact, so if you have 7.1 or 7.2, make sure you write that down because we want it to be as close as possible. So we're gonna write 7 centimeters. Okay, so now we are finding what our circumference divided by our diameter is. for the decimal approximation. So I went ahead and typed in 23 divided by 7, and we are rounding to the 1,000th place. So we're gonna look here, and this number is going to 3.286. Our next object is a candle. So we're taking our string, we're wrapping it around, and then again, where the ends meet, we are going to cut the string. So this length is our circumference. So put it again, you can't really see, but to our ruler. Okay, we're gonna stretch it all the way. And mine is 24.8. Okay, our circumference was 24.8 centimeters. And again, the diameter, we're going across. And we are gonna get 7.5 centimeters. So again, we're gonna write this on our sheet. Okay, so I divided our measurements and we got 3.301. All right, we're doing this can. So making sure that our string fits around, which it does, it matches up right at the edge. Okay, so again, I went ahead and took my string and measured it in centimeters, and I got 23.4. Okay, we're gonna do our diameter, which is across 7.4 centimeters. Okay, so I divided our circumference by our diameter, and this is the number, but we're rounding up again. So that is going to be 3.162. Okay, we are doing our big candle next. I went ahead and wrapped this string around and cut it. This is the length I got, so we're going to take our ruler and measure it to get our circumference. And you want to try to be very accurate with this, because even the smallest difference will affect your decimal approximation. Okay, so for the circumference, I got 39.8. The diameter across this candle was 12.8 centimeters, and dividing those two gave me 3.109. Okay, for our last object, we're going to be doing a cap. So take your string, wrap it around tightly, and then cut where they meet. This is the length we got, our circumference, and we are going to measure this out. Okay, so our circumference was 7.5 centimeters, our diameter was 2.4. We divided those, and we get 3.125. Our last step is to find the average of our decimal approximation. So we're going to add each of these numbers together and divide it by 5. Okay, so I went ahead and added up my decimal approximations, and my average was 3.218. So a little bit off from our goal of 3.14, but it's still pretty accurate, pretty close. We don't want any numbers like 4 or starting with 2, but yeah. So things that might have thrown it off a little bit could have been if I didn't put my string tight enough around the object, or I did it a little bit too loose, so the length wasn't accurate, or even when I was measuring it, I could have been a little bit off. Just by 1 centimeter or 2 centimeters, it will really change your outcome. So that's why it's really important to try to be as accurate as you can. If your number is really far off from 3.14, just go ahead, measure again, try to get different amounts and see if you can get it a little bit closer. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's lesson. Thank you so much for coming along. Hope you learned a little bit about circumference, diameter, and understand a little bit more about how pi plays into those things. Now you can try and measure some objects at your home and see if you can find pi.